Let me just say this. The whole point of highlighting this is not to glorify it.
No,
we're not glorifying no beef. We're not glorifying no violence. I kind of sound like Tony Yayo when I'm saying this. We're not glorifying none of this. All right? Because, you know, when you go into funerals, you know, frequently losing homies that you grew up with to where you took a picture 3-4 years ago and you're the only one left. I think that's what Fat Joe said, and so many other people, you know, that all you doing every time you mention somebody is saying rest in peace. Like that's come on, that's not life. It's not life. So
seeing kids growing up without their fathers.
So much impact.
So much untapped potential, what could have been, because these guys were taken away from us so early.
Right. Welcome to the Clear the Air podcast with D and Q.
Christopher Wallace.
I'm Q, man.
Birdie.
Oh my God. Yo, man, we are back again.
My brother.
And we are still in the series of the impact of hip hop. This topic today is one that we are so familiar with. We've been familiar with it in these eras, okay? We're familiar with it now. And it's unfortunate in a lot of ways where it leads to.
Can lead to. Right.
Can lead to. So we're going to talk about it today. Today we're talking about hip-hop beef. All right? Hip-hop beef has its origins, though, because it started out as one thing. And just like a lot of things, sometimes things can start out with this type of an impact or with this type of an intent, and then can morph into something that it really originally wasn't created to be. So, talk to us about the origins, man.
Well, hip hop at its core is competitive. It's a competitive sport, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we talk about the 5 elements, and in those elements, there's competition. Right. You want to be known as the best MC. You want to be known as the best DJ. You want to be correct. You want to be known as the best graffiti artist, the best break dancer, breaking, all that stuff, right? You want to be known as the best beatboxer, Dougie Fresh and whoever else, you know what I mean? So it's a competitive sport by nature.
Right.
When it comes to the MC aspect, you want to prove that you're the best MC, the best rapper, right? And so, you know, at its essence, people would battle rap, you know. I think I rap better than you. Let's see.
Right.
You spit, I spit. We let the crowd decide. We let the public decide. You know what I mean? So at its natural core, it's just competition.
Right.
And so it morphed from, and not all the time, but it morphed from battle rap to maybe, you know, rapping in the booth on wax. Diss records, possible diss records, and then the unfortunate side when it outside the booth and it may lead to physical confrontation, words, and unfortunately, you know, in some cases death.
Right.
So that's kind of where it originated from and where its place in hip hop is.
Right. Right. So I think you kind of covered origins and even where it's evolved into. Mm-hmm. Let's just jump into some of this beef. Mm-hmm. Okay, so, and what we'll do too is, you know, we'll kind of break down the type of beef. Again, once we've seen its completion of it. Some of it does not have an expiration date. Okay, sure. So let's look at one beef with, you know, we just did the top 10 rappers of all time according to Billboard, and 2 of those rappers that are on there, Jay-Z and Nas. Jay-Z respectively number 1, Nas being the 3rd. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Jay-Z and Nas, okay, the Ether, and then what was Jay-Z?
Takeover. He had a couple. Takeover, Super Ugly, and Blueprint 2.
Yeah. So when you look at that beef, you had two of the top MCs of that time, which now two of the top MCs ever. Okay? What was that beef even over? And let me say this much before he says what it is, because I want to make this point very early on. Beef sometimes is so stupid that you forget what you're beefing about. I don't even remember what it is.
Yeah. I mean, you can think about how you might not get along with somebody. You might be like, I don't even know why I don't like that person. But, I forgot what happened, but I just know I'm not cool with that person. Yeah, it could definitely happen. The beef with Jay-Z and Nas, pretty much, man, it was about who was the king of New York. Who was the best at the time, especially since the unfortunate passing of Biggie. Some people thought it was, Jay-Z said it himself, who's the greatest MC? Biggie, Jay-Z, and Nas. So that's just kind of what it was. It was little pot shots here and there, little subliminals here and there. I actually think Bleak had something to do with it. I think Bleak said something.
Yeah,
Bleak said something, and that just kind of started it and got the ball rolling. And then, Nas said something, Hov came back and said something, and then that's just kind of what it was. And Nas dropped the Ether joint, Jay-Z dropped, Super Ugly and all that other stuff. A lot of people thought Super Ugly, Jay might took it a little too far. So, but anyway, that's what it was about. Thankfully, they reconciled, a word to use, but they came together.
Yeah, I don't know if you can say reconcile, because it wasn't like they was mans in them before that.
Right, but they was cool. They was cool. But they definitely came back and now have several records together.
They even joked about it last year. Like, because people still ask about it, which to me is the dumbest thing, unless you're asking with the intention of celebrating the fact that it's no longer beef.
Right.
But it was asked about, or I think Nas had mentioned that, like, they joke about it, that he had recently joked about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
because I think the past few times they've been on record together, it's been a Khaled record. Yeah, so, yeah. And what we're going to do in this episode, we're going to talk about some beefs that stayed on wax, some beef that, went outside, and then some unfortunately ended differently. And some, like you said, that'll never end. So Jay-Z and Nas was one of those that, thankfully, cooler heads prevailed, and now they cool.
Yeah. So let's talk about, we're going to save, I don't want to say the best for last, but let's talk about 50. 50 came in the game coming at people. Yeah. And it was, to me, very clever. But it's still that, I'm the underdog, you don't know about me, but I'm coming for all of y'all. And it raised, again, to this day, he is a very great marketer. And so it's the reason why hip hop will never go anywhere, and because it's everywhere, is because as long as you can market it, but when it markets itself, that's why beef, when you see the beef, typically somebody's trying to sell a record, right? Or it helps, right? Right. Or it helps with the sales. It helps with that, right? So what happens is he comes for everybody. I mean, he's naming all your favorite rappers. How he robbed them.
How to rob. Yep.
Yeah, and so that's gonna get the attention of the consumer, right? But it's trolling, really. It was really trolling, right?
And he did it back then. It was kind of, you had really never seen that before, because he said their names. He was just saying everybody.
Right.
So, and it rubbed some people the wrong way. A lot of people knew it was in jest, but some people it rubbed the wrong way.
Like, how dare you come at me like that?
Right.
And then you have to also factor in the fact that during this era, that's when New York rap was rap. Okay? So 50 being who he is, and 50 having concerns in the hood, and then a particular record label being tied to that person that there was concerns with, okay, led to the beef with Murder Inc., which led to the beef with Ja Rule. Okay? And so that is a beef, unfortunately, that will go to the grave.
Yes.
Okay? You ask Murder Inc., what's their names? Gotti. You ask Irv Gotti. Yeah. There is no reconciling. Yeah. There is no we gonna squash the beef.
They get mad when people try to ask them to squash the beef with 50. I remember Fat Joe tried to get them, I guess, to perform or something for Chris Lighton. Irv Gotti got mad at Fat Joe, was like, I dare you to ask me. But again, that's one beef. It's no coming back from that because, one, of how 50 is, but two, just, you know, it unfortunately got physical. You know what I mean? Unfortunately got physical. There's been accusations of paperwork and snitching and stuff like that, career killing, because apparently, you know, 50 think he, you know, killed Ja's career. And they, to this day, 50 just being 50, just still sitting by. He said something about Ja last week. So he just, you know, 50 just gonna be 50.
And then it's the other thing with that is not only is it a Ja Rule thing, yo, you got legally, you got basically the entire record label shut down. That's gangster. Never been done in the history of things.
And they had their own issues too. They had got you know, audited and all that, rated and all that stuff. So they didn't help themselves. But you know, they have the INC have their place in hip hop. You know what I mean?
Well, most definitely. Shout out to Ashanti.
Yeah.
Even though that's not hip hop, but shout out to her.
But she is hip hop. She is one of my favorites. Hey, Ashanti. Anyway, get back on track.
So that's one. We stay on 50 because he's got a million of them. 50 and Fat Joe. Now let's change it a bit.
Positive.
Okay. On a positive note. So whether you want to come and say, oh, it's all 50. Nah, 50 can squash beef. He can squash him. We know you think a certain kind of way, but he can squash him. And shout out to both of them because Fat Joe ain't nobody to play with.
Yeah, and Tony Yayo to this day says that beef would have been probably the. He said that was their worst beef, and he to this day he says that beef could have turned ugly. Because like you said, Fat Joe, Terror Squad, they are nothing to play with. They are nothing to play with. And 50, again, being 50, he got mad at Fat Joe and Ja Rule, Fat Joe and Jadakiss, because they hopped on the New York track with Ja Rule.
Right.
And so 50 just being 50, like, how y'all gonna jump on the track with my enemy? So I'm going at y'all too.
So he went back to his How to Rob days. I'm coming for all of y'all. Kinda on some old Tupac. Kinda on some old Tupac stuff. That's what Pac did with the whole Bad Boy situation. Actually, the whole New York situation.
Just being 50. So.
Anyway.
But I will say that turned out positive, and it was because the unfortunate death of Chris Lighton,
right?
He was both Fat Joe's and 50 Cent manager. He ran Violator, and they was both on Violator. And 50 actually extended the olive branch.
Yeah.
Fat Joe said they were doing a performance for Chris Lighty, and they was doing sound check, and 50 reached out and said peace for Chris Lighty. And Fat Joe thought it was like
bluffing.
Yeah, but he did it. They squashed it, and I'm really glad that they did that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna list a few others without really going into them because we really could spend so much time. And let me just say this: the whole point of highlighting this is not to glorify it.
No,
we're not glorifying no beef. We're not glorifying no violence. I kind of sound like Tony Yayo when I'm saying this. We're not glorifying none of this. All right, because you know when you go into funerals, you know, frequently losing homies that you grew up with to where you took a picture 3-4 years ago and you're the only one left. I think that's what Fat Joe said, and so many other people you know, that all you doing every time you mention somebody is saying rest in peace. Like that's come on, that's not life. It's not life. So
seeing kids growing up without their fathers.
So much impact.
So much untapped potential. What could have been because these guys were taken away from us so early.
Right. So there's so many that we can do, and we're gonna save. I don't want to say the best for last, but we're gonna definitely leave some time for this one.
Right.
You had Cam and Mace.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
which is dope now because they squashed it and got their own show together.
Podcast. Yeah. Well, their own show.
Yeah, sports show.
Podcast. Right. You got You had Cam and the Diplomats. Like they beefed. The three of them had their own little situation.
Yeah, that's just because Cam and Jimmy they just clash.
Yeah. You got Cube and NWA. That's an old school situation. You know,
a lot of people think Cube might have the hardest diss record with No Vaseline. Yeah. So
you got LL, Kumo D, LL Cannabis. After having a track together, which to me was so tough. That track was
432, yeah. Shout out to Redman, killed that joint.
How about that?
But yeah, and it's so crazy because a quick backstory to that. So the song is called 4321. Cannabis has a record. I mean, Cannabis original verse on it. He has a line that says, "That mic on your arm, let me borrow that." So LL has a tattoo of a mic on his arm. LL really didn't like that line, so he told Cannabis to change his verse. So Cannabis did change the verse, but LL went back and kept and recorded the record on there about Cannabis on the same record. So he made Cannabis change his verse and then still threw shots at him on the last verse of 4321. So then that's when Cannabis came with second round knockout and LL came with Rip the Jacker, Jack the Rapper, something. But yeah, so that's how that started. And thankfully they, squashed that too. But that was one of those that just stayed on record. And it was. Yeah.
You have Foxy and Kim. I remember that back in the day.
And I think they still don't get along.
Right. You got Nicki and Lil Kim. You know what I'm saying? You got Cardi, B and Nicki. You got what? Remy Ma.
Remy be beefing with everybody.
But
let me throw it out there. You know what's one that's funny, and I'm not gonna go into it. Y'all just look it up. I don't even know if it was beef. It was kind of a misunderstanding. But if you have time, look this one up. Third Base and MC Hammer. Wow. So apparently, MC Hammer, y'all might be thinking, can't touch this and that. Apparently, Hammer is gangster. He has a reputation. So when you get a chance, look that up. There's some funny stories. MC Search, Third Base, and MC Hammer.
I think I mentioned it, and this is going to segue into, what we're going to talk about. Tupac had plenty. Tupac, Nas, Tupac, Mobb Deep, Tupac, and I think De La Soul.
He was just throwing shots at everybody.
Yeah.
He was just throwing
shots. A lot of Tupac, well, let's go into it.
Right.
Obviously, Tupac and Biggie. Now, the crazy part about this is that it was beef. Let's go into it. So the beef part comes in where Tupac gets shot up, robbed at Quad Studios. Okay. Tupac felt like, I want to say it's either he felt like he was set up, which I think he later said, but I think initially it was, if you're supposed to be the king of New York, how can you not find out what happened, or how did you not know what happened at the studio? Okay, am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, and so then it later seemed to have morphed that they had, like, Puffy and Big had something to do with it. Okay, and one thing I like is that Lil C's, number one, his story has been consistent. Okay. But I like the fact that, number one, the fact that Pac knew he knew so many cats. You gotta remember, Pac was born in New York. Okay? He's from New York. So he knew so many cats. So the fact that you got the little homie, Lil C's, being able to really tell you what happened. Yo, Pac's my man, but at the end of the day, I do believe what C said about, what happened. It's unfortunate, but we also know, which is another culture thing that we will talk about, the whole no snitching thing. Number one, they didn't even know. But let's say they did know. You got the whole no snitching part.
The thing with that was, and it came out later, but Pac was hanging around with some dudes he shouldn't have been, and people Biggie told him. Yep. The other cats told him. You know,
Tyson.
Mike Tyson told him. Yes, yeah. And so, those are the people that we found out now that were responsible for it, and it's just unfortunate that Tupac thought that Big and them had something to do with it, or they should have known, and should have warned him about what was going to happen.
Right. So I think we was talking about this earlier. Again, shout out to Lil C's, because what we feel like, if they had still been alive today, number one, the impact that they would have had on the culture, the impact that they would have had on individuals, because they would have gotten through this. And you notice that we not glorifying this, but we want to talk about people who've had beefs and got through them, right? You talking about, coasts beefing, not a city, not a borough, not rival gangs. You talking about whole coasts, okay? That number one shows you impact, but impact in a negative way. That after what happened to Pac, okay, which, watch this, had nothing to do with East Coast, West Coast beef. Had to do with gang affiliation and his loyalty to a fault.
He was running with the wrong people.
Running with the
wrong crowd.
Which is the same thing that tried to tell him about the cats in New York. And so it just kind of carried with him. And so this is a whole nother topic. Can your loyalty lead to your demise? And we clearly know the answer to that. But staying back on focus, what we believe, okay, what we know is that Pac and Big, they was cool. They was tight.
Yeah. Pac used to let Big open up his shows.
And was on his couch.
Yep.
So, you number one, that speaks for something, because we try to make them rivals. I don't really think they was rivals. I think Pac's very abrasive way of handling things, much like today's 50 Cent. He was going to say whatever he wanted to say. And what did you say earlier his mentality was when it came to Big?
He was upset with Big, but they said he just wanted to spank Big. He just wanted to tap Big. You know what I mean? And he was going to get over it. And I believe within months, they probably would have squashed the beat. You know what I mean? Just Pac, I just feel like he was at that phase when he was just angry at the world. He was dissing everybody, but he would have came off of that. You know what I mean? And again, that mentality was promoted because of the record label he was on, the people he was around. That's how they operated. Yep. But apparently he wasn't happy with that situation and was thinking about leaving. Yep. So I definitely feel
that way too.
Yeah. And Pac's boys have said that in interviews now.
Yeah.
They've said that.
Yeah.
So, and it's just unfortunate that, he passed away in Vegas.
And didn't get a chance.
And then Big, trying to make peace and squash things on his own, ended up passing away too. Yeah, led to his demise. So it's just, and that's the extreme. But we've seen some other, hip hop deaths due to beef. You know what I mean? But that's obviously the biggest example.
Yeah, and I think just going back, because just like I said with 50, that 50, regardless of being what you want to call Pac a hothead or whatever, you have to also remember revolutionary. Look at how he grew up. Black Panthers. You were gonna hear what they said. So when you got that, that's a whole nother level of, if there's a beef, we making it known. All right. So, no, we know that Pac could have, it was capable of squashing beef, because technically that wasn't even like really real beef. There was nothing that Big was responsible for doing to Pac. All right. He squashed the beef with Nas. Now, what's crazy, again, let's just say his name, Suge. You responsible for some stuff that led to a whole lot of issues. Number one, that we should have never heard the diss with Nas. It wasn't supposed to, when they met and they had that whole issue, right, in the park, son, they squashed it. They squashed it, and when I get back to Cali, I'm taking that off. I got a diss record. I got a diss. I got a couple verses. I'm gonna take that up against all odds. I'm gonna take it off. It never got taken off, and that was not the intent of Pac. So again, who he was around. But the point is, you got 50 ninjas or more on both sides. And in the middle of that, they were still, Pac and Nas, able to come to terms. I look up to you. I think you dope. And so again, he was possible of squashing beefs. Yes, he was a hothead at times. We also got to remember age. I think we definitely got to talk about age in hip hop.
25, bro. He was so young. Think about it. We talk about now with John Morant and the decisions he make because of his age.
Yep.
Well, at the age he is now and the things that he's doing. Like, we thinking that these dudes were super grown and mature. Pop was young. He was very mature for his age and the things he talked about and rapped about and things like that. But also when it came to that, he was a hothead. So that's why he handled things the way he did. You know what I mean?
And when you look at it like you the big brother, there's certain ways you're gonna carry it as well. So again, very unfortunate. I mean, I think we could really talk about this so much more and in so much more depth. I don't really think we need to talk about it so much more, because it could get to the point to where it could be viewed that we're glorifying it. We're not doing that. We're gonna clear the air now, and I'm gonna mention one more thing that was unfortunate, but kind of bring it to a head. I wanna say this as we clear the air. Life is short. Biggie and Pac died in their early 20s, okay? There's so many more cats that have lost their lives in this hip hop game, okay? I don't even want to start naming them, okay? But you can go by year, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. Some of the biggest names you could think of. And again, it's not about trying to glorify it, so I don't really want to go there. I am going to mention this person to really kind of bring up the fact that life is too short, all right? So just like Pac and Biggie did not have the chance to make amends like we think would have happened, neither did Takeoff and Quavo. Unfortunately, before Takeoff's demise, they did not get a chance, him and Offset, to reconcile, okay? The problem with beef is that a lot of times it's ego. And when ego is involved, it takes away from, it makes you forget about things, okay? What does it make you forget about? The fact that, we was brothers and we created something together, right? They were cool. And this beef that was perpetuated in the media, I remember even when Pac said it, don't blame me when this thing gets blown up more than what it's supposed to get blown up. And that's what happened. Media gets involved. Even then, now media is accentuated 10 and 100 times over. So now,
social media now.
right? So now here it is. This man has lost his life, and somebody who was a brother to his, they did not even have a chance to squash that as they matured and grew older. The problem is that life is not promised to any of us. We don't know how long we have, and holding on to stuff that we could just deal with it, move on from it, because life is too short. So as we've cleared the air, again, the discussion is not to glorify the beefs, not to talk about how hard the diss songs were, the diss records were, not to talk about who even had the best diss record. Like, come on, man.
So, let me say this. Again, like he said, we're definitely not glorifying the beef. But there are some times where a beef can be entertaining. It can be good. True. When it stays on wax. True. And when it's about showing your skills, it could be, DJing battle. Like you said, we talked about Juice, that movie. Or, I go in the booth, you battle rap. We both like the battle rap stuff.
Matt
Hoffa and Mook and Jay Mills and all those guys. So, I mean, it can be positive. You know what I mean? But the term beef has that negative connotation because for the most part it is negative. What I'm saying is you can show your competitiveness in hip hop without it being physical, without it being violent, and fortunately without somebody dying. And I think that's the part that we're trying to say. We've seen all the sides. We've seen it stay on wax. We've seen it turn physical. We've seen it turn where people squashed it, thankfully, and then we see the extreme part. So, and that's the part, we want to talk about. It's more than one aspect of it.
Right.
And we definitely not glorifying the extreme part of it.
Right. And that's a lovely way to have cleared the air. So, again, as we begin to go into more topics regarding the impact of hip hop, again, talking about women, talking about
culture, sports,
talking about sports, talking about, God, it's just so many different areas that we could get into.
The people we've lost.
Right. Which, we kind of talked about it here, but to kind of go into more detail with some things. Again, there's so many places we can go. You don't want to miss these conversations. Again, just being able to celebrate that it's beautiful that hip hop has been around for 50 years. Okay, there is good, there is bad, and unfortunately there is ugly. So walk with us on this journey as we walk out the conversation about the 50 years of hip hop, the top 10 list, all of that, the top 50, all of that, who are your favorites, all of that. Make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, okay? Make sure that you are also listening to us with the audio experience on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And of course, you don't want to miss the clips that we come out with that are on Instagram, that are on TikTok, that are on Twitter, that are on Facebook. So we're out for another episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.